Hello, looking at a secondhand CD I got a little while ago now. Encomium, a tribute album to Led Zeppelin, which came out in the mid 90s, I think it was 1995. And I remember when I was young, my older brother owned this. So I'm a pretty big Led Zeppelin fan, and tribute albums are usually a waste of time, I guess. Very rarely is a band doing a cover version better than the original. But there are, every now and then there might be one that is maybe not better, but as good, or even just kind of put a different take on it, an interesting take on it. This was mostly bands of that age, of the mid-90s, kind of alternative rock-ish bands. Four Non Blondes, Hootie and the Blowfish, Sheryl Crow, Stone Temple Pilots, Big Head Toad and the Monsters. I've never actually heard of them before. Duran Duran, they kind of don't fit, do they? Blind Melon Cracker, Helmet with David Yow from Jesus Lizard, Rollins Band, Never the Bride, and Rock Plant with Tori Amos. So all of those bands were kind of on the radio at that time, 1995. And you can see the choices of songs they made. So kind of some of the bigger songs like Good Times, Bad Times, but also some of the not so I guess, were they singles? I don't know if Led Zeppelin released singles, but Custard Pie it's hardly a big song. Four Sticks. But you see Misty Mountain Hop. Yeah, I'm never a big fan of Four Non Blondes. I don't like, what's her name, Linda Perry's singing. I don't like her voice. Hootie and the Blowfish, they're okay for Hootie and the Blowfish. I don't really want to hear them doing a Led Zeppelin song. Dear Maker is Dia Maker, I don't know how you actually pronounce that. It's probably my least favorite Led Zeppelin song as it is. I like Sheryl Crow though. Always had a soft spot for Sheryl Crow. Best song on the album by far is the Stone Temple Pilots cover of Dancing Days. That kind of stands by itself. That's a cover song I actually would go out of my way to listen to. Listen to the original, but I'd also go out of my way to listen to that one. That they do pretty well on that. They also did it on one, I think on their MTV Unplugged. They did it on that as well. Stone Temple Pilots. Scott Weiland's voice really suited that song. And you can see other ones. Yeah, there's nothing else really there. Good Times, Bad Times by Cracker. See, I don't mind Cracker either, but I don't mind their version of Good Times, Bad Times. This was $1, and I remember when I got this, which is often the case when you go when you're in a secondhand store or again, I'm talking about a general secondhand store, not a secondhand music store. You'll find that if someone's recently bought in a bunch of their old CDs to donate or to sell or whatever, you'll find a bunch of CDs from the same artist, especially if you've been there quickly after the person's been through. So I remember when I got this one on the same day or the same shop, they also had Led Zeppelin 3 and 4, and 2 Robert Plant solo albums, and something else as well. It was Them Crooked Vultures, which John Paul Jones is in. So someone obviously was a bit of a Led Zeppelin fan because they had solo albums and side projects as well. Had kind of dropped off a bunch of stuff, and those are the ones that were left there. So I got all those, $1 each, not bad. And yeah, so like I said, this was 95, and all of the bands that they used were either on Atlantic Atlantic Records or on a Atlantic subsidiary, like a a imprint label, or they call it, the, I don't know what you call it. The bigger label. What do they call it? Jeez, I don't know what they call it. But there's the big label, and then there's the little labels that are associated with the big label. So under Atlantic, there are XYZ labels, that are connected in some fashion. So it's got there the little pictures of the artists. Doesn't have a picture of Stone Temple Pilots though. Obviously, working with Robert was a hoot. I almost wore my confirmation dress just for old time's sake. That's what Tori Amos said about doing a song with Robert Plant. The other bands. What did Blind Melon say? Led Zeppelin has always been a big, let's say, I can't change it. It looks like it's backwards writing. Oh, sorry, I can see it. Big influence to me, especially as I was growing up learning to play guitar. In fact, we've ripped them off so much, I'm surprised they haven't sued us yet. Now, I wonder. No, so this was before Shannon Hoon died. Or at least it might have been released after he did. Well, he died in 1995. Anyway, it says he's on the vocals, so yeah, I remember he does sing it. So there's images for all the artists involved, except for Stone Temple Pilots. Why are they not on it? I'm pretty sure they were an Atlantic band, weren't they? And there's some questions there. They like interviewing some of the people about what they feel about Led Zeppelin. And again, see, there's all these kind of like big long things, and Stone Temple Pilots just says thank you. And maybe this is during the period where, because I remember I listened to a podcast a little while ago, and I like Stone Temple Pilots. I liked them, and I didn't realize how much trouble they had. I knew Scott Weiland had problems with drugs, heroin and whatnot, and it was hard for them to tour, but it sounded like a nightmare during the 90s. Once, I think, after the Purple came out, from then onwards, it was just, he was in and out of prison and rehab, and getting anything done whatsoever was just impossible. I didn't realize how much trouble they actually had, so maybe that's why they don't have a band photo here, and they don't have any screed of their feelings about Led Zeppelin, because they couldn't pin down Scott to offer anything. Henry Rollins. What does he say? Yeah. Anyway, yeah. As far as tribute albums go, it's not that bad. What other tribute albums are? Is a good Black Sabbath tribute album. What is it called? Nativity in Black, I think is what it's called. Yeah. I remember I used to be a huge Faith No More fan. I still am a big fan of Faith No More, but I remember in the early 2000s there was planned to be a Faith No More tribute album done by a whole bunch of new metal bands like Korn and Limp Bizkit. And at the time I thought that sounded great. Now not so much. But that never actually happened though. Encomium, if you're wondering, means is kind of like, it's another word for tribute. A written tribute is an encomium. And there's a word, I remember when my wife was pregnant, I was reading about, the birthing process, that when a baby is first, the baby comes out, is born, its first poo after being born, it's called a memcomium. Memcomium. And I mean, whenever I heard that word, it always reminded me of this. Encomium. Memcomium. Don't actually sound it. It's just the eum at the end, isn't it? Nothing else is the same. But yeah. Interesting thoughts, eh? All right. Bye-bye.